Music has power. Oh, yes, it does. Music has the power to reach millions across the globe. Music transcends culture. It transcends race. It transcends religion. And music transcends ability. We're living out loud with Rohan Gandhi. Find out why this man's gotta sing next. Hey, how are you doing? Thank you so much for stopping by our channel. This is Sheila Lives Out Loud and I am Sheila Mwanyega. Remember to subscribe to this channel and click on notifications and catch up with each and every episode. We are at the Westwood Hotel, all set to live out loud with Rohan Gandhi. Rohan, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Sheila.
How you doing?
Great.
You happy?
I'm very happy to be here.
I am so excited to finally meet you. We've had an online relationship.
We have.
And now we finally get to... Okay, well, do not get it twisted on relationship. We've met online and we've been talking online. And
Correct.
Finally, we get to sit together.
Face to face.
Asante.
Thank you for having me.
Now, for anybody who's catching up with us now, what would you say to them about Rohan? Why should they watch this interview to the end?
So Rohan, metaphorically speaking, is a racehorse. He's got blinds on both sides, on the left, on the right. Doesn't look in any direction but forward. Runs towards the finish line, cross that finish line, reach your goal. That's my aim with everything that I take on in my life, whether it's music or whether it's my career as a mechanical engineer. So with what I want to do with this interview is to inspire anyone who's watching, who's out there, and let them know that despite your challenges, it's quite obvious being in front of the camera now that I do make use of a wheelchair. Despite your challenges, you can achieve anything you want. The difference between dreams and reality is purely desire.
I love that. The dreams between the difference
between dreams
and reality is
purely desire.
Desire.
How bad you want it.
How bad do you want that thing that you want? Oh, wow. Okay, so let's go straight into it because you've described yourself metaphorically. And not everybody is a poet. Not everybody sees the vision and the pictures with the words. Sometimes we've got to deconstruct a little further.
Right.
And so we go back to your childhood. You mentioned being a mechanical engineer. Was
Correct.
that something you knew from the get-go? Mama, this is what I'm going to do.
Yes, I would say, because I always had a passion for cars and airplanes. So I always wanted to work with something which was in line with that. And my dad always used to work on car engines when he was younger. And just observing him do whatever he used to do when he was younger and he could do that sort of work, it inspired me also. So just observing airplanes, vehicles, every young boy growing up, I guess, likes fast cars. So that's where my inspiration came from. I never always knew I would be a mechanical engineer, but I knew I would touch on something that had some relation to vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you grew up in the city. Am I right in assuming you grew up in Nairobi?
Yes, I grew up in Gumo area.
Oh, come on. So you're a Nairobi boy.
I'm a Nairobi boy.
Yeah.
Complete Kenyan.
Yeah.
Born and raised here. I'm actually fourth generation Kenyan. My great-grandfather came from India during the time when they were building the railways here to, yeah.
So you're just as much Kenyan
then,
as the rest of us, really, when
100%.
all is said and done.
100%, yeah.
Okay, so growing up in Gumo,
Yeah.
of course, hanging out with the kids, getting in trouble every now and then.
Yes,
and then you transition and you grow a little bit older and you get a little bit more smarter and you start doing different things and you get interested in different things.
Right.
Then what happened?
Before I actually got the chance to be as smart as I actually wanted to be, I went through an unfortunate incident in my life. I got paralyzed at the age of 16.
What happened?
I got a viral infection of my spinal cord. It's the equivalent of an ischemic infarction. So it's what people get strokes in the brain. That's commonly heard, but not commonly heard that is stroke in the spinal cord. So my nerve endings were deoxygenated. This happened while I was in school in front of all of my peers. And within 15 minutes, I got completely paralyzed from the waist downwards.
And what causes that? Did the doctors tell you?
It's an autoimmune reaction, according to the doctors here. It's whereby your body's own immune system doesn't do what it's supposed to. So I was playing a field hockey game, and I felt sick, so I got the regular flu. And my body's immune system, instead of attacking the flu virus, it attacked my spinal cord abnormally. Yeah, it happens to 1 in a million.
Oh.
So yeah, the chances are very low
Right.
of it happening, but it happened to me.
But it happened.
Yeah.
So here you are, 16, and everything you've known about life has changed.
Correct.
You're
Yeah.
going back to the basics. What was
Yeah.
that like for you and your family?
Oh, it's very difficult to deal with because here I am playing sports, playing football, bowling with my friends, like basketball and field hockey games. Sports was my life, aside from like the social aspect of it. And then within 15 minutes of being in the presence of all of your peers, you get paralyzed completely, and you don't know what has actually happened to you, right? You don't know whether this is something that's going to last for 2 weeks, a month. Are you going to recover within a year? Today it's been 12 years. I'm still in a wheelchair. Yes, I have recovered significantly, but just being on that hospital bed observing the ceiling, it's like you don't know what's next coming for you, right? I didn't know. I was in the middle of my A levels, and I didn't know how I was going to go back to school. How would I face everyone that I grew up with? How would I be embarrassed? Would I be shy? Would I even have the courage to go back? It's one of those things. But you mentioned my family. My family is the reason why I actually went back and managed to become strong. Family support for me is everything.
They walked with you and they understood and they supported you.
Absolutely.
Through a very difficult time.
Yeah.
When I listened to you, your biggest fear wasn't about what you could achieve with your life, what happens next.
Right.
And just what you've said to me, your biggest fear was, what will other people think?
Yeah.
And as teenagers, what other people think is so important,
Right.
to the point where we lose ourselves and we stop focusing on what matters most because we're so busy trying to look at what other people think.
Right.
How did you go beyond that?
Okay, so people are judgmental in general, right? The world, it's not only teenagers. If you look at our society in general now, people with social media and everything, they can make fun of they can pick up on the slightest flaw that a person has
And it's
make
even
fun.
sometimes perceived flaw.
Yeah.
You don't know where this person is coming from.
Exactly, or it may not even exist. You may have heard it from your friend through just word of mouth, correct? So it's an unforgiving place right now, the world. So you have to build yourself mentally that other people's opinions are not going to change what my situation currently is. Only my mental state of mind is what's going to change how I perform in the future, correct? So for me, everything was focusing on what my family was telling me, that you're no different from the guy standing next to you. You're still that same old person. But at the end of the day, no matter how much somebody tells you something and tries to motivate you, there is always that fear that exists in you, right? Until you become fearless. And that's also part of my, when we touch on the music, I talk a lot about overcoming your fear. And once you overcome your fear, I feel you can achieve anything.
Anything is
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Going back, doing your A levels and doing well, because I don't think students who don't do very well go on to mechanical engineering. We're all looking for people who are qualified and know what it is that they're doing.
Correct.
What was that like, throwing yourself into your studies?
I had to go back to school eventually after my illness. I took 4 months out. I went for rehabilitation to India, where they gave me more confidence to face people, even though I was on the verge of depression. But I went back to school, finished my A levels. I wasn't the best performing student in my final years of schooling, but I did well enough to pass, and I took a year out of school after that. So taking a year out of school, did intense physiotherapy again to build myself mentally. It was not more about the physical state. The recovery which came with it was, yes, it was more than welcome, but it was all about my mental state of mind at the time. How all my friends went to university.
Yeah.
I was the only one that stayed here. So it was battling my own thoughts of, hey, will I ever go to university? Will I ever get the opportunity to do what my friends have gone and done in university? So taking a year out, I managed to build up the courage with the support of my brother and my parents. And eventually, a year later, I went to Canada to study because I was told to go out of Kenya, even though my brother was studying in Nairobi University. I was told for my personal, in just given this condition, I need a place where disability is better understood. There's ramps to get into buildings, there's elevators in most buildings, and the counseling you can also receive from there will be life-changing.
Right.
And indeed it was.
It was.
Right.
And how long were you in Canada?
I was there for 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah.
That makes you almost Canadian.
Almost Canadian,
Almost,
yeah.
but you can never be anything but Kenyan.
But Kenyan, yeah.
Yeah, it can never be anything but.
Yeah.
So while you were there, obviously it's a different culture, it's a different environment. How was your experience there?
Initially, it's culture shock. You come from a place where we're very fortunate in this country to have people help you in your household chores, to do everything for you in terms of support you in whatever you're doing, whether it's physiotherapy or whether it's me getting out of my car, even like, for instance, when I came for this interview, being assisted getting out of the car. In Canada, you don't have these things, or in the States, or if you do have them, you have to pay a huge sum of money to get somebody to actually give you that assistance. What the cost of physiotherapy here is, if you went to Canada and you asked for a session of physiotherapy, you could get a month's worth of physiotherapy here, maybe for 5 sessions there. Everyone is so busy with their own lives. Nobody really has concern for what you're going through. Here, you still have your support of your family, correct? But over there, I went alone.
And you were alone?
I was alone. I lived on residence in the university, in the dorms. And it just matters about how you make the circle that you keep around you. So the friends that you have, the friends that I have, well, I had there, were very uplifting. They always motivated me and made me understand that despite my challenge, the country that I was in now, people are more aware of your disability or your flaws. Or it's not a flaw, actually.
No, it's not a flaw.
Yeah, exactly.
It is what it is,
yeah.
But they took you for the person that you are.
Right,
It wasn't clouded, or they weren't looking at you through the prism of disability. It was looking at you as Rohan, and what is Rohan up to?
Yeah, and what can he achieve?
And what can he achieve?
Not even what can you achieve, they would point you in the right direction. I always believe that if you surround yourself with people that tell you what to do, rather than the skeptic people who tell you what not to do, that's how you can actually reach that goal that you're trying to get to. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Moving along swiftly, in just reading up a little bit and getting to know you more, I read about discrimination that you faced.
Yeah.
And that was discrimination in a gym.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that, and just, you know, this whole concept and what it's like, because you know what it's like to be able-bodied.
Right.
And how that made you feel.
Just in general, if you look at society in general, if one girl is prettier than the other girl, or if you're better than somebody in your workmate in an office, there's always that envy. Jealousy is a form of envy, right? Or these things exist in society, right? So when somebody sees me as a person go to the gym and do certain things, like maybe lift a heavier weight than the next guy, right? He says that, why, despite his challenge, can he lift more weights than me? Just as an example, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know where the discrimination came from, what the person's mindset was, but I believe maybe events prior to what happened to take place in somebody's life come out, like they reflect on what a person's actions are, right? So maybe that person had a problem maybe in their house with their spouse. I don't know what they went through, but they came to the gym frustrated and saw me on a day, and I caught the short end of the stick on that day, and they said that their words were, these machines and this equipment is not made for people like you. And I had, mind you, I had been working out at this gym for every holiday that I came back from Canada. I was working out at this gym. And this person had seen me on several occasions, right? But just on that particular day, or maybe something happened to them snapped. Or it might have been building over a while. Or maybe, you never know, they might have a relative or somebody close to them who's in a wheelchair and may not be as strong as what they're seeing presently.
What you're able to do.
Yeah.
Right.
So that frustration comes out. Right?
Yeah, and that's taking it out on you.
Yeah.
And one of the worst things that anybody can do is discriminate against somebody who's got a disability.
Right.
Because it's a statistic that I read that a lot of the injuries that happen and cause disability happen much later in life, that people
Right.
aren't born with many different kinds of disability. It just happens to them through accidents, infections, and just situations that life will throw.
Right.
And so if you're busy judging someone, you don't know what tomorrow holds, and you don't know what could happen to you, and whatever you're dishing out to someone today,
Exactly.
it's definitely going to come your way again.
Yeah, it's karma, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we don't choose. No one in their right mind would choose or even wish a disability on somebody else.
Right.
Continue with this story in part 2.